We would normally associate Paddy Broughton with the beautiful Kialao, but this time, Paddy, you're going to be navigator on Love and War. That's quite a gig. How did you get that?
Well, oddly through the Kialao link, but I've been sailing for many years with Lindsay May, both on Brindabella and Kialao. Unfortunately, Lindsay's had to have some skin things chopped out of him, and he's not going to recover in time for the Sydney Hobart race. So he dobbed me in with Simon Kurtz, who gave me a ring the other day and said, "What was I doing for Christmas?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to Queensland." And he said, "No, you're not." But honoured to be asked, and big shoes to fill with Lindsay.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've worked and sailed with him. You've sailed with him a lot, indeed. When we were in Europe, we were talking to you both. He's an incredibly sort of methodical navigator, isn't he? So you're presumably trying to emulate a bit of that.
Absolutely, and also piggyback off it. I speak to him every day, and when you're navigating, whether you're doing a long passage like we do on Kialao from here to the UK, you do have to be methodical because you've got other people's lives in your hands. Yeah. But at the same time, being able to chat to Lindsay, certainly in the run up to the race, and get his perspective on things, because quite often he'll say, I remember XYZ race, it'll be the 81 race or the 93 race or something like that, and he'll talk through the conditions and he'll explain the things they did and how it looked, and that's very, very helpful background, particularly on a classic like Love and War, because we're not doing 25 knots. And so current and the way that the systems come through and approaching Tasmania, all of those things become very, very important.
And you were saying that in 2006, Lindsay attributed that win, the overall win there, probably in large part to how he picked the currents. Is that right?
I think that's right. I mean, Sean Langman was talking about it earlier, but there was 4 knots of current running, but it was quite a long way offshore. And Lindsay and the crew tactically organised pretty much every tag, every jibe that they did to get them into that current, and then rode it all the way south. And when you think that 4 knots when your hull speed is probably 7 or 8, is it's 50% of your hull speed. It's massively important because it's free from the point of view of a handicap.
Yeah, absolutely. And she's a sort of a very evergreen design, isn't she? She really does have the ability to win this race again on handicap. Presumably a reasonable amount of upwind, solid upwind for her, really, ideally?
Absolutely. Solid upwind is her thing. She is an extraordinary upwind sailing vessel, really, really very good. And yes, that's what we'd need. If you've got a reef and you're down to the 3 or the 4, you'll probably be rubbing your hands and thinking, here we go. Where it's less good is obviously strong downwind running, because the smaller, lighter, more modern designs can lift and plane, and Love and War doesn't really do that.
Displacement.
Exactly.
The whole way
Displacement.
down. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Well, all the best for that. And just before we sign off, tell us a little bit about what's happening for you. Kialao is still around, I gather.
Kialao, still own Kialao. She is for sale, but at the same time, she's been for sale for a while. We're enjoying being in the UK. We did British Classics Week, which was fantastic, and we're building up for next year to do the Rolex Fastnet race, because it's the 100th anniversary of the RORC, and we'd quite like to participate in that, having sailed Kialao in the 50th anniversary edition of that race. That'll be good fun.
Yes, and the last Fastnet in her, there was almost iconic pictures of Kialao with her bow out on that first day at sea. That was a hell of a first day, wasn't it?
Coming out through the Hurst Narrows, yes.
Yeah,
it was 35 odd knots of breeze against about 4 knots of current, and there were some very, very steep waves, but the old girl handled it beautifully.
Yeah. Well, all the best for the race. We're looking forward to see you down in Hobart, and I'm sure Lindsay will be following every move.
I'm sure he will, and fingers crossed. Thank you.
Thanks very much.